Players spawn in a relatively open area, with the first bonfire right ahead. Since they already know, before entering the level, that their goal is the crane at the mountaintop, I set up clear visual cues near this first bonfire. Players only need to look up slightly to see the crane on the summit, as well as the elevator platform below, connecting to the mountain. This way, players can quickly get a sense of the final goal's direction right at the start of the level. Leaving the bonfire, there's a group of enemies ahead, with blue ranged enemies up above. If players charge straight ahead, they'll easily get caught in the crossfire of both ground and ranged enemies. So we've set up a relatively safe combat area on the left. Players can head in here first to deal with the ground enemies, using the buildings and terrain to block the ranged attacks from above. After defeating the ground enemies, players can keep moving forward along the wall and pick up some loot along the way. Continuing along the wall, you'll see a slope on the left, which is clearly the path to go up and deal with those ranged enemies. But if players insist on pushing straight ahead, we've placed a bunch of explosive barrels here. If they ignore the ranged enemies and just run forward, these high damage barrels will deal massive damage or even kill them instantly. So players really need to deal with the ranged enemies first. You can see the player's health in the bottom left is already depleted. This is mainly to simulate the resource pressure during progression and combat, making the upcoming bonfire and path choices more meaningful. Let's use a potion to heal up first, then jump into combat and defeat the ranged enemies at the top. After dealing with the ranged enemies, you can't just jump down from here, because the drop is high enough to cause fatal fall damage. Although you can see a chest ahead, we can't get to it just yet, but the nearby lighting and terrain will guide players to notice a deep pit here, with jumping platforms below. Players can carefully make their way to the bottom of the pit using these wooden jumping platforms. Continuing forward, the area ahead is set up with some enemies and loot. Then there's a more open, lit underground area ahead. If you head straight for the light, enemies lying in wait will launch a sneak attack from behind. This is to encourage players to maintain a habit of observing their surroundings, rather than just rushing in a straight line toward the most obvious target. But after dealing with the ambushers here, you come over here, and there's another group of mobs. Once you clear them out, you can open this chest and continue heading upward. Once you reach the second floor, the open-air structure, trees, and natural light here will further enhance the spatial variation. Even though it's underground, because of this design, players won't ever feel too cramped or claustrophobic. Continuing upward, once back on the surface, I've placed a piece of loot by this window where you come up, to draw players over to the window. From the window, you can see the marker at the end of the main path we saw earlier, and the explosive barrels from before on the side. This helps players clearly realize their current position and how this area connects to the main path they were on earlier. At the same time, you can see a golden tree in the distance and an open, plaza-like area. This golden tree serves as a visual anchor to help players understand the spatial layout. Next, let's turn back and explore the rooms in this building. Coming in from that bright outdoor light in the distance, there are two rooms. We can put some lore or environmental storytelling here, and maybe some exploration rewards over here. Then, returning to the room we started in, there's a fairly open space. Coming up the stairs, we can see the loot we couldn't reach earlier. And at the same time, we can see a snowman model opposite us, representing an NPC or merchant area. We can go through here. Once we're over, we see these wooden planks. We can cross over to the other side and interact with the merchant. Then we cross back over the planks and continue up the stairs. Reaching the top, we find a ladder shortcut ahead that can be kicked down. Once kicked down, the player unlocks a shortcut to quickly return to the previous bonfire from ahead. The main purpose of this shortcut is First, because there's a very difficult boss room just ahead. This shortcut reduces the run back cost for players after dying, and it also helps them gradually build a sense of spatial connection within the level. Now, let's heal up. If the player hair has already used up a lot of potions along the way, they can also use this ladder to go back to Bonfire to replenish their health, or they can just come back here after dying. After defeating the boss here, we'll find that the boss room is located at the very top in an open area of this side path. This clearly tells the player that this is the end of the current side quest, preventing them from mistakenly thinking this is the main path. Now that the side quest is complete, we'll use the ladder shortcut to get back onto the main path, return to the area with the explosive barrels, and keep going forward to the plaza we saw earlier. After picking up the loot, there's a bonfire right next to it. Looking up from the bonfire, the lines of the buildings here form a focused composition, guiding the player's gaze back toward the destination on the distant mountaintop. This serves as a second confirmation of the final goal, preventing players from losing their sense of direction after finishing the side quest. Meanwhile, when we were exploring the building above earlier, we might have looked down and confirmed there's another area here, and there's some loot. Let's head over, defeat the enemies here, and grab this chest. Then we can open a one-way door here. This door couldn't be opened before, but opening it now reconnects us to the very first bonfire. At the same time, we return to the bonfire in the plaza. Let's rest at the bonfire to recover. The markers in the plaza tell us that the wider area on the left with enemies is the main path, while the right side can be used for future side content. Let's head down the main path and defeat these enemies. And then we heal up. We can see that if we want to keep going forward, there are some stone pillars that fell earlier, destroying the houses and blocking the path. But we can see through the gaps in the pillars with the sunlight that there's actually a chest behind them, though we can't reach it just yet, so we have to go to the right. Ahead on the right, there's a clearly stronger enemy. More experienced players will usually explore around at this point. Here, you'll discover that there's actually a wooden walkway underneath the bridge. This hints to the player that they can use this walkway to bypass the enemy. We saw earlier that there's also some loot here. We can jump over to grab it, but we have to be careful. If we overjump or miss, we might fall into the swamp or poison pool below, making it hard to get back up, or we might just die instantly. Then we normally cross the wooden walkway and reach. We've slipped behind this large enemy. Backstabbing them will make defeating them a lot easier. After dealing with this enemy, there's another bonfire set up ahead to restore your status. Also, over here, in this wild area, we've placed some NPCs who can teach you skills. Once you've learned a new skill, we can place some enemies in the area ahead. For example, if you learned an AoE skill, we can place a large number of low health, low threat enemies to test the effectiveness of the skill you just learned. Then we can come over and open this chest that we saw earlier but couldn't reach. Continuing forward, players will see a rather grand cathedral ahead. At the same time, you can see that the crane on the hilltop behind is already very close. If players try to go straight to the end, they'll find the main gate here is closed. And there's a notice here telling players that due to a recent accident, this gate has been closed, thus guiding players to explore the cathedral. After entering the cathedral, the first passage will be very dark and narrow, and you can see the first bonfire and some light on the left. Once we come to the left and light this bonfire, there's a door ahead. When players go up and interact with it, they'll be told they need a key, so they'll head back to explore the main gate here. Push open the main gate. Once it's open, the visual experience will suddenly switch from the narrow, dark corridor just now to the tall, spacious interior of the cathedral. This spatial contrast is used to enhance the overall sense of exploration upon entering a large building. Then, near here, the way is blocked by wooden beams, so we can't get through right now, but we can search nearby for the key we just needed, so we can go open that door from earlier. After opening the door, you can see an elevator ahead and also enemies. Once we defeat the enemies, we can try it. This door on the side can't be opened. So we'll go take the elevator first. Take the elevator up to the top of a tower here, and you'll find a gap. Then, through this gap and a gap in the roof, you can jump down and enter the roof structure inside the cathedral. There's some loot on the roof beams. While we're picking up the loot, we can also notice that the beams on the other side have more and better loot, but it's temporarily inaccessible. So for now, since we can't get across, if you look closely, you'll find some of these candle chandeliers below us. We can go down to this light, and by using the height difference of these chandeliers, we can jump to lower ones and finally return to the ground safely. Now we can reach the previously inaccessible area inside the cathedral. Some enemies are set up here, and at the same time, this door on the left can now be opened. Once opened, you'll find we're back in the previous left elevator room. And this route leads to the first bonfire. This creates a shortcut inside the cathedral. Once we deal with these enemies inside the church, you'll find that over here, there's a pretty important quest item you can pick up. At the same time, the door on the right can be opened now. Open it and clear out some enemies. Over here is the elevator at the back right of the church. We won't take it just yet. First, let's head behind us to this area with all the bookshelves. You can see an enemy in the distance with their back turned. If you rashly try to run up and backstab them, you'll get ambushed by the enemy hiding by the bookshelf on the side. So, after looking closely, we'll take out the two enemies, then head forward, open the loot chest here, and then open the door. You'll find we're back at the main entrance of the church. This way, we've opened all the side doors on both the left and right, creating a continuous loop inside the church. Next, let's rest at the bonfire to recover our stamina. If you take the elevator on the left side of this church going up, and you were paying attention just now, you'll notice there's a mezzanine here. If we jump off the elevator midway onto this mezzanine, we'll find a slightly tougher enemy ahead. After defeating it, in this higher area over here, there's a really good, high-quality weapon. On the way to get this weapon, an ambushing enemy on the ceiling will jump down to attack the player. Of course, if the player noticed this enemy beforehand, or if they return to this area after being killed by it, and come prepared, they can easily defeat it and get this nice weapon reward. Then we head back to the first floor of the church and go down this corridor on the right. Kill the enemies that respawned after resting at the bonfire again. Now for this corridor on the right, taking this elevator up also leads to a mezzanine, but let's take it to the very top first. we'll find that this tower is completely intact, so there's no way out. Then we go to the mezzanine we just saw, and we'll find a long set of stairs here. By taking these stairs, we can reach the back of the church and exit, completing this area. But at the same time, let's go check out one last side path. Going back to that same mezzanine by the elevator on the right side of the church, we'll find there's actually another mezzanine below it. After opening the door here, we come to an outdoor area on the left side of the church, a renovated area that's fenced off. Then take these stairs up, open the door, and you'll reach the rafters at the top of the church. Here you can grab the loot we saw earlier but couldn't reach. Collecting this loot serves as a little extra reward for players who love to thoroughly explore. And once we've grabbed the loot here, we can use the chandelier below, along with the broken wooden beams on the floor, to safely get back down to the ground. Now let's take the elevator again to reach the stairwell that leads out of the church. Once you're out of the church, there's a reward chest right here. Then let's explore this little path on the side of the church. There are also some elite enemies on this side path, and you can get some loot drops from them. Once you're completely done with the church area, you can head out here. You'll see a green area ahead, which is the small garden behind the church. In the garden, players can look back at the underground area they just passed through, which strengthens the vertical connection of the entire level. At the same time, looking up, you can see the crane, making players realize they're getting very close. Then you can head over to the side here to pick up some loot in the corner. And then over here, you can see the door leading to the final destination. Now we're at the final crane. Let's climb up. And with that, the main walkthrough for this level demo is complete.